with Dave and Mecky's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for only $5 a month. But until the end of the month in August 2020, it's free. So jump in there and grab as much of the shows as you can and listen to them. It's really worthwhile. If you're new to Shiny Side Out, welcome aboard. This is a tinfoil hat zone. So keep your arms within the vehicle and turn off your personal reality inverters. And please, no flash photography. We're glad you're aboard and thank you for inviting us into your lives. So follow, subscribe, or otherwise for the appropriate social media platform. We can edit that out and post, although we're live. And we're halfway through show number 439.
930 and 400.
Ooh, nice reverb. And we're talking about the physical, biological artifacts. This is part 2. So if you wanted to catch the last one, you'll have to go to show 438. So Mecky and I ask that you do something to contribute. We contribute to the show by creating content to the station. You can go there and purchase merchandise from the station's website, possibly a USB stick with documents on it, or seed packs, but follow the instructions carefully and make sure that you understand the importation laws from your associated authorities. All right. Alrighty then.
Now, yes, look, we spent a lot of time talking about the ancient tech and ancient civilizations, possibilities thereof, the evidence that still exists. If only you open your eyes, and we spent 15 weeks, 10 weeks, we spent a lot of weeks on it. And hopefully some of it stuck. But the question is then, Mackie, hey, Dave, what about, the actual people of that time? You say these, these people are around and very old, and what physical evidence do we have? What do we know? So it's actually a multi-pronged problem here, a multi-pronged approach that you need to take to understand where this all sits. So number one, Dave, officially the human race is 300,000 years old, thereabouts, right? Give or take. 300,000 years, Homo sapiens sapiens, that's what we think about. Mm-hmm. When I was a child, Neanderthal was my ancestor. Right? Mm-hmm. I did send it to you. No?
Oh, I can't. I'll have a look.
Look in the chat, dude. It's definitely there.
Yeah, but not in the show chat, I suppose.
Yeah. I'll do it again. But ultimately, here we go.
I can see it now.
Ah, look at you seeing things.
To refresh.
Using your eyes like a professional.
I'll just say, Mecky sent it to me in my private chat, not the chat we're currently in. So it's my fault. It's all good.
Clearly my fault, but it's Dave.
It's mine. I should have looked.
But ultimately, though, and page 15, by the way, is where we're going to start off because I haven't got permission for the other stuff yet. Just as a information for our esteemed listenership, I don't just put information out there because I can, and Dave doesn't put information out there because he can. When required, we ask for permission, and right now, permission is still pending from a website around some of the material we would like to share with you. But it's a multi-pronged approach. So, human race is about 300,000 years old. When it was a child, like I said, Neanderthal was our ancestor. We now know that Neanderthal was a contemporary. More than that, interbreeders. That means they were the same species as us. So they produced fertile offspring. We know they was fertile because we still have DNA from both. Both, if you will, Homo sapiens.
It's fantastic, isn't it, Becky, to think that a creature with 48 paired chromosome pairs and 46 could get it on.
I know, right? That's not just get it out, but also put a bun in the oven.
Gone down the toilet.
Hey, you're such a street person.
But isn't it, I'd always questioned it. I questioned that when I was a kid, right? Neanderthal, fair call. You know better than I do, and now we've got a whopping great list of genetic diversity from all different species that were around at the time.
Yeah, as we will learn. Well, today, if we have time, I hope we can learn today. But we will learn about another species that was found in 2019. Yeah, believe it or not, in the Philippines. So we're going to learn about that. Yeah, I think we should get there today. But the point here is, so this human race is being pushed further and further back in time. That's one thing, right? Number two, it also seems that we're talking about different kinds of humans, or Homo sapiens, or whatever you want, that used to be around. Blue-skinned ones, green-skinned ones, ones which had different facial features, some more hairy, some less, some rather large, some rather small. So there's a whole spectrum of biological variants we simply no longer see today. We just don't see it. It's just not there. I mean, we look at the human race, and if you travel around the world, you go, oh, the human race is such a wonderful and diverse group of people. If you came from Scandinavia and traveled around the world, then the answer is yes, because you probably only ever saw, blue-eyed and blonde-haired people. But if you compare it to what I think and Dave thinks used to be there, some 100, 200, 300,000, maybe even 1 million, 2 million years ago, it's nothing. I think the variety of species that used to exist only echo into our time through stories. I mean, now we've got the physical evidence, but it's the stories of the little people, the fairies, the monsters, the ogres, the trolls, the dwarves, etc., the giants, if you will. We have no other link to that past apart from the stories, and we don't know how all these stories are. We don't know. I mean, the Brothers Grimm, they went around in the late 19th century in Germany and wrote down a whole bunch of stories, right? We know them now as the Grimm's fairy tales. The Brothers Grimm didn't make them up. They wrote down what the people were telling their children, and had been telling them for centuries, millennia, who knows how long, right? Arabian Nights, collection of stories that was first translated by Burton, Richard Burton, the adventurer, and not the actor. And yeah, that's right. But certainly something that we have to realize, someone didn't make these stories up necessarily. They were part of the folkloric texture and connective tissue that people had. Right? People were telling their children these stories. If you've got and I said this before, if there were a children's rhyme that you sing to your children, it would be the meter that determines the memorability of it, right? How well does it rhyme and so forth.
And it means, like a checksum, that you must keep it intact for it to work. So ring a rosy, a pocket full of posies, a tissue, we all fall down. We know that, and we're taught that at an early age.
It harks back some 600 years. Okay, to the time of the Black Plague. A pocket full of posy was to overpower the odor of the death, essentially, the stench of death. But look, yes, so that's a very good example, Dave. Thank you. So that's one aspect over there. And now we also learned that in the 19th century, and we explained last week why that is, a lot of the mining concerns, a lot of miners and laymen and such found really strange physical evidence in these mine shafts, which we know are very, very old. We're going to go there as well. I've got extensive extracts from the book Hidden History by Michael Cremo in here in our text. Extensive. I still have to edit it a bit more, but Forbidden Archaeology as well. Michael Cremo, Richard L. Thompson, both great. Or yes, they are connected to the Bhakti Vedanta Institute, which is a Hindu institute, an Indian institute. It is. I'm not saying they're not, but what does it matter? I mean, Indians believe in reincarnation. I happen to believe in that as well. But the point here is that it's a great scholarly work of 900 pages. Don't worry, we're not going to give you 900 pages. We're going to concentrate on a few things. But ultimately, we need to look at the human race and ask ourselves: do we know all there is to know? Do we know everything that we know? Right? We know everything we know, but we don't know everything that there is to know. And when it comes to evolution and creationism as well, there are a lot of unanswered questions. And to that, I've actually prepared a paragraph on page 15 of our show notes, because that's where we have to start, because we haven't got the permission to read the first 14 pages to you, which is really fascinating. And look, this all shows also in dedication to Lloyd Pye, who's no longer with us, he was a fantastic researcher. He was a great guest. I loved talking to him. We still have this interview. It's still out on our YouTube channel. Please go ahead, or you can. I don't know if it's in the archives for Freedom Slips, but I think it should be.
We can put it.
So
in there.
Yeah. So either way, just listen to it. I do apologize for the audio quality. It was show number 13, and we didn't have the audio equipment that we have today. I don't even recognize my voice, Dave. I listened to it today. I thought I've got the worst lisp in the world, and if you told me that was me talking, I go, no way.
I found 2 more shows during the week. I found 45 and 76 or something as well, and I popped those in. And I found a whole bunch of them, so I'll be slowly adding those in just for everyone. However, if you have our Jim Mars episode, if you have it on MP3 or you bought one of the CDs from the station where you had like the best of or just the Shiny Side Out or whatever, it would have been on it. And if you could find that show for us and let us know and send it through. I've looked everywhere on the internet, Mickey, and I can't find it. I didn't have it. We didn't have a recording at home then. And we relied on the station, and all of that was lost. So if anyone has it, please let me know. All right.
I'll try to see if I can make friends with anyone at YouTube, and anything is possible. I mean, I don't think they actually truly delete everything; they just take it offline. But look, we never know, right? And it'd be great to get it back because Jim Mars, I've admired this man for a long time. I saw him speak several times live. But then, the greatest pleasure was when Dave and I got to interview him and actually shared the same space, the same airspace for an hour.
It's great.
That was phenomenal. I thought, yeah. Now, let's get back to my problem with the current argument. That's right. Look, and this is really my problem. And Dave, we have discussed this many times. And I wrote it down so I don't forget any points here. I probably will ad-lib some of it, but ultimately, I'm neither a creationist nor a dyed-in-the-wool Darwinian evolutionist. If pressed, I would have to admit that I find punctuated equilibrium and interventionism reasonable explanations of where we are today, both for the human condition as well as the fauna and flora, with which
something I'm into too. Mm-hmm.
I know. Absolutely, yeah. With which we share the planet, right? So,
and interventionism,
yeah. Oh, great! Look, we are quantum Presbyterians. That's who we are. Creationists take the easy road, and if you don't know that, that's a Hitchhiker's to the Guide reference. Creationists, in my opinion, take the easy road. God made it so, right? End of argument done. Mic drop. Exit stage left. Is really what you're doing there. I once had a friendly discussion. This actually happened. On the train with a couple of born-again Christians. I myself was a born-again Christian and have since fallen off the of that wagon. We discussed a whole range of things until we came to the age of the Earth. Right? So 6,000 years, give or take, a few, they said. Aha, said I. And with unassailable logic brought up the dinosaur fossils. Surely this would win the day, was my foolish thought. Not quite. You say, they said, God made them old. And down goes the Titanic. There's nowhere else to go from here. God made it so. God made them old. Yeah, they're fossils. They're probably 60 million years old. But God made them old. Well, what you can't argue from that point, right? It's the end of story. As far as I'm concerned, I got nothing. I'm empty. I'm out. Dave, I'm out. Last clip gone. Strict Darwinists, on the other hand, at least for me, are in the same class as creationists. It's nonsense, man. Well, bear with me for a second. It takes faith to blindly believe in something for which no absolute proof has been offered. So if somebody gives me proof absolute of something, I go, okay, that's now a fact. Thank you very much. I can add this to the facts in my life, and they might have to change, but right now that's a fact. It's the fact of evolution. It's not called the fact of evolution. It's called the theory of evolution. Why is it called that? Because it's a theory. It's a good theory. It's a groundbreaking, visionary theory.
What we have today.
Yes, all of those things. But it's a theory. And why is it a theory? Because we're still missing links that prove, and this is really the kicker here, that prove the gradual and random mutations are the movers behind all of the species development. So what Darwin said, and Darwinists still say, all evolution is very gradual and it's completely random. These are the two key characteristics. And given enough time, that's the third one, I guess, given enough time, things just happen. And they happened in our way. Now this is where I'd like you to put on your logic hat, please. If truly evolution was dependent upon random mutations, Random mutations, okay? Then where are the multitudes of fossils that show the failed mutations, such as 3 trunks growing out of legs that are covered in 2-meter feathers? Ridiculous, you say. Well, no. Nature has no deliberate agency, we are being told. Nature is just a term. Nature is not a person. It's an anthropomorphized term, yes, but nature is not the little lady with green hair.
It has no agenda.
Nature.
No, that's
go on. Nature is an abstract term describing, the world we live in. That's nature. It's an abstract term, like culture. Culture is describing everything man-made. Nature versus culture. Now, it is all random. It is all random. That's what we're being told. All these mutations, random. There is no plan. There is no prime mover. There is no agency here. Therefore, ergo, there should be a mountain of failed and completely ridiculous mutations. There should be, because it's random. And what we also know, having studied mutations now and seeing the outcomes of nuclear disasters and such, we also know that most of the mutations that we encounter are not benevolent. They're not beneficial. They don't help us. They don't help the organism that was exposed to the mutation-causing agent. But we do not see them. We don't see all these failed mutations in the fossil record. Where are they? Where are they? Where are these mountains and mountains of fossils of monkeys with 3 trunks growing out of legs, and they've got 2-meter feathers? Where are they? They're not there. Now, it seems that our genes respond to environmental and external pressures and maybe even internal pressures. Catastrophism and punctuated equilibrium seem more likely as an explanation in this scenario. But that kind of scenario walks awfully close to some kind of guiding principle. And this is really where it all gets really very confusing and very metaphysical, right? Because punctuated equilibrium states that these evolutionary leaps happen in exactly that way, in leaps, right? They're not gradual little changes. They're massive changes to the organism, right?
Because when a catastrophe occurs, we need to change. Changes are... No, wait. Hear me out. So changes are more likely to be required to survive when there's a great catastrophe. And so the punctuated equilibrium is talking about catastrophism, where you had to reach higher to get the leaves or the berries or something, right? You had to be a better climber, or you'd be faster, or you had to be larger because the foes were more plentiful. Or if you're a predator, your predation, as a result of the animals getting bigger, you were no longer able to kill them successfully, so you had to get bigger, right? Or you had to get smaller because they got smaller and there was less food to support a larger creature. That needs will. So punctuated equilibrium is not just about the random mutations that occur really slowly when we have no will to need change, but when change is actually required, there seems to be a connection, Meki, between
that's exactly the point.
Needing to do something different and not just a random mutation that allowed it to be more successful than you, which is Darwinism, but rather the thing that, Meki, we did a show on this where the memory of something can last, 7-10 generations. Remember that the blue food that was given to a rat that tasted hideous, and they didn't want to eat blue food going on, and then eventually, 10 generations on, there was still a memory of blue food was bad, though despite them never having contact with anyone who lived through that period of time. So if we can retain a memory, I'm quite positive that to support punctuated equilibrium, there would have to be not just memories passed on genetically, but the things that made you successful, like maybe out into the top 5 or maybe top 2, that you were faster or you needed to climb, and because of the success of it, it goes into a part of your brain which is then replicated through your DNA and passed on. It would be the only way that would be a thing, because you couldn't suddenly take the sloth-like, random mutations and have it succeed for you in a catastrophe. Back to you.
No, and this is really the point here, right? So, and this is where we're on very thin ice, very close to the guardrails when we talk about guiding principles. So what we've just described and what Dave has just alluded to is there's some kind of selection going on, not random, but deliberate selection of genes, traits, whatever it might be, that will help you survive better. Meaning, the way you evolve, adapt, is in direct response to your environment, not random at all. So while we, as people and most animals that we see, we don't seem to have any active control over the way our genes perform or how they're passed on or which genes are activated, which are not, it seems that something does, which of course brings up a whole other question around the genes themselves. I mean, if they've been pre-programmed with a whole bunch of stuff, I guess, like fail-safes. I mean, you might need this if that happens, you might need this if that happens, etc., etc. Yeah, like in Waterworld, that's right, with the guilds. No, but this is really this is really the kicker here, right?
I was still typing it and making you answered the point. That's funny.
Yeah, but yeah, that's right. And it's really quite interesting to see these thoughts emerge, because we see this in every field of scientific endeavor, and most of them, I should say, not all, but most. In quantum physics, mind seems to be important all of a sudden, even though quantum physicists will vehemently deny that. Oh no, you misunderstand the role of the observer. Clearly, I do. Clearly,
maybe you do.
And same, yeah, and same with genetic selection and so forth. So we understand catastrophes happen. We understand we don't have the missing links. We understand that things evolve. But what is more important, Dave, some things don't evolve. A shark is a shark.
A crocodile.
A shark is a contemporary.
He has been for coelacanth.
Yes, coelacanth, my favorite example. Contemporary of the dinosaurs. So the coelacanth was meant to have been extinct. It's a fish. It's a bony fish, right? And it's fairly large. In the Indian Ocean, just off the coast of off the coast of Madagascar, and the last fossil record is about 65 million years old. Again, temporary of the dinosaurs, and thought to have gone extinct with the dinosaurs. Again, no one selected the dinosaurs for extinction. We think maybe an asteroid hit the Earth and dinosaurs all died out. Nature didn't do that. Yeah, it's completely nothing in the fossil record. So clearly the conclusion drawn by scientists, the logical conclusion, completely wrong, but the logical conclusion was that, okay, the coelacanth also ceased to exist. Understood. So happens the coelacanth swims around the Indian Ocean in quite the same fashion, and very happily so, as it did 16 million, alive and well, as it did 65 million years ago. So there is a gap in the fossil record for this particular species. Now, could it be there could be other gaps? Well, that's a very good question, Mickey. The answer is yes. Of course there could be. Of course there could be. Like Dave said, sharks, crocodiles, they haven't changed. They're still sharks and crocodiles. Why? Because they didn't need to change. They are already apex predators. They might have changed size, but they're apex. Why would it change? Same with human beings. All right? Why would human beings change unless absolutely necessary, especially if there was a huge variety of human beings around? Right, going back millions. Oh, now I'm putting my foot in it. Going back millions of years, right? So interventionism, and this is where it gets interesting. In some of the stories that we've been told, interventionism, meaning somebody tampered with our development and with our genes, with our appearance, with what we are as humans. At least as far as we're concerned, that's Dave and I, seems reasonable. Interventionism seems like a reasonable thing. There may be a few other species involved as well. I mean, we looked at cheetahs in some detail, and it seems that every cheetah is the clone of the other cheetah. So all cheetahs are clones. DNA. Can you imagine it? Yeah, a species that is entirely comprised of clones. That's virtually impossible.
A tremendously high failure rate of reproduction. And the ones that fail, their DNA differed from the parents. and the ones that succeed are the same. But what else, Becky, about the cheetah which is extraordinary?
Well, they get dog and cat disease.
Because they have
that's
both,
really
like an interlaced dog and cat DNA sequence. They have dog and cat fur.
And they have never, exactly, and they have never attacked. There's no recorded case of a cheetah ever attacking a human being. Never. We just don't know of it. And the Egyptians, if you used them as hunting dogs, I guess, or hunting cats, as it were. So is this a species that was interfered with? Quite possibly.
Have been brought here.
We're talking. See,
they certainly could have been here. The Anunnaki could have had them side by side, like pets.
Yeah. And that's why we spent 16 odd weeks or whatever it was talking about ancient tech. We talked about nanotechnology to you. Okay, we talked about things we couldn't do today, both in the very, very tiny, the minute, like obsidian, Iskavri and such, right? As well as the very, very large, like the Baalbek stones, right? So we've talked to you about that. So is genetic engineering really that far-fetched if you consider nanotechnology already, which we know existed? It's physically there. There it is. Look, you can touch it. So this is where we are, everybody. And Dave, why don't you tell us about humans' name taxonomy? This is the official stance on the human race. And I took it straight from Wikipedia. Even Wikipedia, though, as we go through it, you will see is divided amongst itself.
Oh, wow. Well, that's really funny. I tried to change something in Wikipedia, and I was told I was wrong. Do you know what I liked about it? I was describing my ex-wife and her surname. Her surname was spelt incorrectly, and I decided to help Wikipedia and get it right. And they said I didn't know. How could I know? I was only married to her. Crazy. I even sent them the certificate, the wedding certificate, marriage certificate, and I was still wrong. They said no. They still denied me the change. Righto. Good luck. Good luck ever finding it. You can't find someone by name if it's not spelt right. Hilarious. Anyway, so as much as we both jest in Wikipedia, you take it for what it is, all right? It's still someone's opinion. It's not meant to be a person's opinion, and I'll step off my soapbox. By binomial name, Homo sapiens was coined by Linnaeus, and in 1758, the Latin noun homo, that's genitive hominis, means human being, while the participle sapiens means discerning, wise, sensible. That doesn't describe any of my relatives. The species was initially thought to emerge from a predecessor within the genus Homo around 300,000 to 200,000 years ago. A problem with the morphological classification of anatomically modern, in inverted commas, was that it would not have included certain extant populations. For this reason, the lineage-based cladistic definition of H. sapiens has been suggested, in which H. sapiens, or Homo sapiens, I suspect that means, Mackie, is that right?
Right.
Would by definition refer to the modern human lineage following the split from the Neanderthal lineage. Such a cladistic definition would extend the age of the Homo sapiens to over 500,000 years instead. Estimates for the split between Homo sapiens line and the combined Neanderthal Denisovan line range from between 503 to 565,000 years ago, between the 550 and the 765 years ago, and based on rates of dental evolution, possibly more than 800,000 years ago. We're almost at the million at this point. Extant human populations have historically been divided into subspecies, but since around the 1980s, all extant groups have tended to be subsumed into a single species of Homo sapiens. avoiding division into subspecies altogether. Some sources show Neanderthals, that's the Homo neanderthalensis, as a subspecies Homo sapiens. Similarly, the discovered specimens of the Homo rhodensiensis, that's it, species have been classified by some as a subspecies of Homo sapiens, and then rhodesiensis. Although it remains more common to treat these last two as separate species within the genus Homo, rather than subspecies with Homo sapiens. All humans are considered to be part of the subspecies Homo sapiens sapiens, a designation which has been a matter of debate since a species is usually not given a subspecies category unless there is evidence of multiple distinct subspecies.
Exactly. And so the reason we brought this to you is I wanted to show just how divided science still is around the Neanderthal Denisovan problem and other species as well. And then how old does it make the the human race? How old are we really? Is it 200,000? Is it 300,000? Is it 500,000? Is it 800,000?
Because remember, it's all we've got to work on, Mickey, just to hammer this point in, is a couple of jaw bones and a finger and a leg bone.
Yeah.
Right? We have a skull.
And that's
what was the name? Out of South Africa? Lucy.
Lucy.
So we've got a skull. We've got this jawbone. We've got this, but they're not side by side found everywhere. In order for us to determine that all of them had a prior origin. Remember, Meki, that this is an evolving, mind the pun alert, it's an evolving science of record discovery. That's all it is. Completely.
And the point we've made for 10 years now, and privately for much longer, I can assure you, is that the human race and the antiquity of the human race, will be moved further and further into the past. We will learn that we are a lot older than what most people have believed. We will understand this from the artifacts we find. We will understand this from the genetic evidence. We will understand it from a multitude of different angles. Maybe even full disclosure one day. Not the fake disclosure, but actual full disclosure, right? And at the opening of the Smithsonian, the Vatican libraries, the storage bunkers, etc., right?
Oh boy!
I would love that.
So just say,
two things.
What's kept from us right now is a world of information that they don't want us to see, right? Because the current timelines, Mickey, are so vague. We don't have anything to work on. We find a jawbone somewhere and go, woo, yeah, that's it. We've just dated it now. We can push it back 100,000 years. Great. Yeah.
But it makes someone's career. You have to understand that these things make people's careers, and people are first and foremost self-interested, right? Very few people are pure in intent and pure in spirit and pure in execution. A lot of us. I mean, you have to eat, right? You got a roof over your head. You like the finer things in life. Most of us are like that. There was only one Mother Teresa, Dave. Just one. Okay?
So to be clear. Look, if it were the case, Mickey, that just like Fifth Element, where the religion had kept the secret, the key, and the end of the universe would be stopped by, the Fifth Element. But we're always in contact and had been for a long time. Had references to aliens, for instance. That's what the whole movie's about. Never mind that orange rubber outfit with the white top. Never mind that. Yeah. But the point of the movie is that it was kept from people. People didn't know this stuff. Because if soon as you said, I had a key that opens up this door that saves the whole of the universe, that key's not going to be in your possession any longer.
And the thing is, this as well to understand. The access to information, education that we have today is unprecedented. Okay, you have to understand that for the longest time, probably for the vast majority of written history as we know it, the vast majority of the human race could neither read nor write, nor ever received an education that was meaningful in any way. We only started receiving educations as we know them today, like our children, not all of them either, at the end of the French Revolution, more or less, around the 18th century. That's when it first sort of started trickling through to the common people. I'm talking about that. I'm talking about the common people, which were ignorant and illiterate and uneducated for the most part, because they had to worry about those surviving, really. And only in later years, and certainly the Industrial Revolution and the social revolutions, that brought with them communism, socialism, etc., and democracy, God forbid, to most of the world, and not even large parts of the world, did we see something like public education. And still to this day, the vast majority of human race does not participate in regular education. To this day. And knowledge is still a plaything for the elite. And you and I, and just being able to read and write and having access to all these things we do, form part of that intellectual elite. It's a fact. But for the most...
No, please finish your thought.
No, look, but for the most part of our existence, 99% of the people lived in the dark.
Look, I remember doing all my research in libraries. Right, libraries are at the centerpiece for a culture because they're historical record and creativity, there's art, and there's non-fiction. But Mekki, that 30 years the internet's been around, right? And yeah, pretty
just
much,
about.
Right. I remember in 1996 I was on the internet, and we didn't have much access to there was very little out on the internet except for what we put there ourselves. And now I'm just seeing censorship going crazy on the internet because you can't have access to everything, surely, right? It continues. The censorship continues. The censorship that was the Vaticans and the Smithsonian's, they said they've admitted to destroying skulls of giants.
Yes.
Because you can't know about
that.
We'll
touch on that, but yeah, absolutely.
Take it away with the hobbit-like human ancestors found in Asia.
Oh, look, we discussed this before. I want to bring it up for completeness' sake. This was published in 2004 by Hilary Mayo. It's just an article. From then, scientists have found skeletons of a hobbit-like species of human that grew no larger than a 3-year-old modern child. The tiny humans, who had skulls about the size of grapefruits, lived with pygmy elephants and Komodo dragons on a remote island in Indonesia 18,000 years ago. And some believe much more recent, because there's stories of that the locals tell each other, of course. But what do the locals know, Dave? They don't know anything. They're not specialists. Australian and Indonesian researchers discovered bones of the miniature humans in a cave on Flores, an island east of Bali and midway between Asia and Australia. Scientists have determined that the first skeleton they found belongs to a species of human completely new to science, named Homo floresiensis, after the island on which it was found, of course. The tiny human has also been dubbed by dig workers as the Hobbit, after the tiny creatures from the Lord of the Rings books. The original skeleton, the female, stood at just 1 meter tall, which is about 3.3 feet, weighed about 25 kilograms, about 55 pounds, and was around 30 years old at the time of her death, some 18,000 years ago. The skeleton was found in the same sediment deposits on Flores that have also been found to contain stone tools and the bones of dwarf elephants, giant rodents, and Komodo dragons. I'd love to see a giant rodent in a death fight with a dwarf elephant. That would be something to behold. And these lizards can grow up to 10 feet long. Now, to a 1 meter human, a 3 meter Komodo dragon might indeed look like a dragon, if you get my drift. Homo floresiensis has been described as one of the most spectacular discoveries in paleoanthropology in half a century, and the most extreme human ever discovered. This species inhabited Flores as recently as 13,000 years ago. Again, that time there, the Ice Age, Dave? Right? It just keeps popping up, buddy. Which means it would have lived at the same time as modern human scientists say. Oh, what a shock that is. To find that as recently as perhaps 13,000 years ago, there was another upright bipedal, although small-brained creature walking the planet at the same time as modern humans is as exciting as it was unexpected, said Peter Brown, a paleoanthropologist at the University of New England in New South Wales, Australia. Brown is a co-author of the study describing the findings, which appeared in the October 28 issue of the science journal Nature back in 2004. Of course, the National Geographic Society's Committee for Research and Exploration has sponsored research related to the discovery. The find will be covered in greater detail in a documentary which aired in 2005 on the National Geographic Channel. So if you want, you can probably watch that somewhere in an archive. It's totally unexpected, said Chris Stringer, director of the Human Origins Program at the Natural History Museum in London. To have early humans on the remote island of Flores is surprising enough. That some are only about a meter tall with a chimp-sized brain is even more remarkable. That they are still there less than 20,000 years ago, and that modern humans must have met them is astonishing. Well, not to me, to him, yes. And now let's be very clear, though. The size of the human brain is not as important as you think. On average, the Neanderthal brain was a lot larger than the human brain, right? Homo sapiens that we consider modern human. So what really matters is the matter of folds, the little crenulus, how much surface area the brain is. That seems to matter much more. The researchers estimate that the tiny people lived on Flores from about 95,000 years ago until at least 13,000 years ago. That's a long time. The scientists based their theory on charred bones and stone tools found on the island. The blades, perforators, points, and other cutting and chopping utensils were apparently used to hunt big game. In an accompanying commentary in Nature magazine, Marta Mirazon-La and Robert Foley, both with the Leverhulme Center for Human Evolutionary Studies at the University of Cambridge, England, described Homo florensis as changing our understanding of late human evolutionary geography, biology, and culture. The discovery shows that the genus Homo is more varied, and I want to say this again. The discovery shows that the genus Homo is more varied and more flexible in its ability to adapt than previously thought. No, we always thought that, Dave. The genus Homo also includes modern humans, Homo erectus, Homo habilis, and Neanderthals, all of which are marked by relatively large brain cases, erect posture, opposable thumbs, and the ability to make tools. Homo florensis is an addition to the short list of other human species that lived at the same time as modern humans. I think people will be surprised to learn that not so long ago we were not alone, said Brown. Now, you know how you snuck in there the short list of other human species that we've discovered so far? I want to add. Dave?
That's right. That's right. All the other ones. Yep. And we might find more. And there's no doubt. We haven't dug everything up. And the fact that we lived at the same time as them, and I remember them cohabitating that cave, it was said, at different times of the year. So there was a crossover. Isn't that crazy? Like, imagine being migratory and then, you go into a cave and it's empty. So you occupy it, then you move out, and then the other people go, we'll move over here again, and the cave is empty again. Because maybe the food was different, or maybe they were more suited to cold weather or wet weather or something, or dry weather, or however. Crazy. It's just crazy to think that, right? And look, despite us being still under the Homo brand, the genus, we do contain DNA from the different species, subspecies, which says that we could breed with them, and it would have only high tones in the chat room. We would have. A couple of rotten fruit later, Meki, and everyone looks attractive. Let me just put it that way, right? Cold nights, need a bit of spooning. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to put together a scenario in which that would have been a thing. But, each to their own, I suppose, Meki. So, what about this lost world of the tiny people? Despite its smaller body size, smaller brain, and a mixture of primitive and advanced anatomical features, the new species falls firmly with the genus Homo. The researchers speculate that the hobbit and her peers evolved from a normal size, island-hopping Homo erectus population that reached Flores around 840,000 years ago. It's prior to the earliest fossil, Becky. we're talking about in a genus. Physically, they were about the size of a 3-year-old Homo sapien, modern human, child, but with a brain case only 1/3 as large. Childbirth would have been a lot easier. Said Richard Roberts, I put that extra quote in there, a genochronologist at the University of Wollongong in Australia, and one on the co-authors of the research paper. They had slightly longer arms than us. More conspicuously, they had hard, thicker eyebrow ridges than us, a sharply sloping forehead and no chin. Wow. That's sharply sloping forehead, Becky. Do you remember that the Strongs showed us that picture?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically just the eyebrows and there's no top in the image that if you have a look at the Strongs video that we put out just a couple of weeks ago. While they don't look like modern humans, some of their behaviours were surprisingly human, said Brown, the study co-author. He must have gone back in time, Becky, and watched them. The Flores people used fire in hearths, for cooking, and hunted, I don't know what that word is. Stegodon, that's right, a primitive dwarf elephant found on the island. Although small, the Stegodon still weighed about 1,000 kilos, or 2,200 pounds, and would pose a significant challenge to a hunter the size of a 3-year-old modern human child. Hunting must have required joint communication and planning, the researchers say. Almost all of the Stegodon bones associated with the human artifacts are of juveniles, suggesting that the tiny humans selectively hunted the smaller Stegodons. The Flores humans' diet also included fish, frogs, snakes, tortoises, birds, and rodents. They're all suitably sized too, I'd suspect. The Hobbit was nobody's fool, Roberts says. They survived alongside us, that's the Homo sapiens, for at least 30,000 years and were not known for being very amiable eco-companions. And the hobbits were managing some extraordinary things, manufacturing sophisticated stone tools, hunting pygmy elephants, and crossing at least 2 water barriers to reach Flores from mainland Asia, with a brain only 1/3 the size of ours. Geez, he does hammer that home, doesn't he? Given that Homo florensius, I'll get it, florenziensis, is the smallest human species ever discovered, they outpunch every known human intellectually, pound for pound. Both the tiny humans and the dwarfed elephants appear to have become extinct at about the same time as the result of a major volcanic eruption. Now, the volcanic eruption is supposed to have happened, but it's also the same time that the Earth would have experienced some quite substantial meteor impacts, and that could have also subsequently allowed a lot of pressure out via volcanism.
Oh, and absolutely. And this is the next component here, mingling of the human tribes. And this is really important from a timeline perspective. There's no evidence of modern humans reaching Flores before 11,000 years ago. So it is unknown whether the Hobbit intermingled with modern humans. The researchers found Hobbit and Pygmy Stegodon remains only below a 12,000-year-old volcanic ash layer. Modern human remains were found only above the layer. But this, again, 12,000. I mean, we're talking about the moon being maneuvered into orbit. We're talking about the flood events, the end of the Ice Age,
raining fire,
down tools everywhere, the end of
water.
Yep, all of that. 12,000-year-old volcanic ash layer, just hand in glove.
Yeah,
Dave, hand in glove. Yeah. Still, rumors, myths, and legends of tiny creatures have swirled around the isolated island for centuries. It's certainly possible that they interacted with modern humans, according to the researchers. Not only that, who says they're all dead? For starters, who says they're all dead? Right? Let's be clear. I mean, there's sightings of Bigfoot, how much easier, always considering Bigfoot is real, how much easier would it be for a tiny human to hide from us? Looked at from a regional perspective, we definitely have modern humans in Australia from at least 40,000 years ago. We know that goes back to 80,000 now. And in Borneo from at least 43,000 years ago, Robert said. So there was temporal overlap between the hobbits and ourselves from at least 40,000 years ago until at least 18,000 years ago, more than 20,000 years minimum, right? And we only have 2,000 years since the birth of Christ. That gives you a bit of an idea of how much time that is. What was the nature of the interaction? We have absolutely no idea. We need more sites and more hard evidence. And that's the next phase of our investigation. I can assure you that we haven't found anything since. Dave?
Okay, so island dwarfing. Researchers are also anxious to investigate how and why the hobbits came to be so small. When scientists discovered the hobbits' remains, they thought it was the skeleton of a child. There was no record of human adults that were that small. Modern pygmies are considerably taller, at about 1.5 meters tall. You know, say between 4.6 and 5 feet tall. The Homo florensis, that'll do, presents an intriguing problem in evolutionary biology, Brown said. The most likely explanation is that over thousands of years, the species became smaller because environmental conditions favoured smaller body size. There's the Darwinism again. Dwarfing of animals on islands is a well-known process, as seen worldwide. Islands frequently provide a limited food supply, few predators, and few species competing for the same environmental niche. Survival would depend on minimizing daily energy requirements, but there is no absolute proof that this is what in fact happened with this small human. Meki, they just before I read the end, but they forget that fishing is a huge part of island living, where food is actually quite plentiful. But anyway, while there are stone tools dated as far back as 840,000 years ago, no fossils of large-bodied ancestors have ever been found. On Flores, Brown said there is some possibility Homo floresiensis arrived on the island small-bodied. He said there's some possibility they arrived already small. I could not have predicted such a discovery in a million years, said Stringer of London's Natural History Museum. This find shows us how much we still have to learn about human evolution, particularly in Southeast Asia.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And yeah, I know. And look, we didn't get to the next article, which we will share with you, which was written in 2019, and this is titled, "The Previously Unknown Tiny Human Species Has Just Been Discovered in the Philippines." In the Philippines, right? This was in 2019. We'll share that with you next week. And then we'll go on and talk about the Atacama skeleton, you know, and hopefully you'll have some permission to talk about this. I mean, we can talk about the Star Child skull, but I'd like to use the material from the website, which is really very detailed and interesting. And then we're going to go into some more interesting cases from the book Forbidden Archaeology, The Hidden History of the Human Race, written by Michael Cremo and Richard Thompson. If you haven't got it, get it. It's 900 pages of very dry academic reading, but the information contained therein is extremely thorough and well presented. It's like reading an academic book, though, at university. If you ever went through that, that's exactly what it's like. There's a shortened version, just called Forbidden History and Forbidden Archaeology. Get those books if you want. They are much shorter and abridged, but that's our program for you, from us, for the next few weeks. Do remember, though, this is listener-funded radio. The station needs you to donate if you can. Ideally, subscribe to the archive. I mean, you know, it's $5 a month, and it's a steady and secure, or at least relatively secure income for the station, right? So every bit helps.
You know, Flippy posted a Komodo dragon link for everyone who's listening as well. Thanks, Flippy.
Cool.
So the whole thing's interactive, guys. There's a chat room. You should join it, and you can chat to us while we're on air. I like that component of doing live radio, and you can still talk to us. How cool is that? Oh, and someone said that you can mark the fire tornado off your 2020 apocalypse bingo card.
It's Omega Logos. Thank you, Omega. That's nice. Who had aliens for September? Zombies for October? Vampire zombies?
Anyone?
Right. Anyone?
It just keeps giving, Becky. It's such a good year.
I know.
And it is the year of hindsight.
If you have run out of material for TV shows, 2020 have given you everything you ever need. That's all. It's all there. Just rewrite it. Make it more believable.
It'd committeize the show, and it would be just as bland as any other show that's not memorable. They'd water it down so hard you wouldn't recognize it. To be honest, let's be honest here.
So true.
So look, Jer Bear's coming up next. The music's just about to start, and he's got a great show. You should listen and call in, be a part of it. Don't be shy, and don't forget, talking stick, wait your turn, and we'll catch you next week for another show. We start out with David Mackey. Next week's show is 440. 440. My goodness. All right. Thanks, Hummingbird. Thanks, Tones. Amiga Logos. We'll catch you next week.